Hey everybody, this is Sally Griffyn, aka Millionaire Yogi, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Galen Fous. And I have, full transparency here, and that's what I love about some of my interview subjects is I have a very limited idea what he gets up to. I have a little idea, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. So Galen, am I even saying your name right?
You got it. You nailed it. We'll say,
Great.
very precisely stated. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Galen Fous. I'm a transpersonal psychologist and therapist, a sex researcher, author, and lecturer. I'm on the faculty of the Modern Sex Therapy Institute and the Sexual Health Alliance. Both of those are accredited institutions, and I offer classes for therapists to better understand how to deal with clients with an alternative sexuality, particularly what I call a kink oriented sexuality. So this is, but I realize after about 20 years of doing this now, what I really am about how I would define how I support people is what I'll call empowerment therapy. And this is what I find most people come to me and it's around some topic of their sexuality. They have a hard time owning it and saying, yeah, this is what I am, because, oh my God, that'd be so embarrassing what my friends think. And so they have a difficulty bridging that gap there, or they've been wounded or traumatized earlier in their life, or shamed or made terribly afraid, terrified of their sexuality. So those are the parts of them that have the power as I look at it. These are an internal unconscious complex that's got embedded in them from their childhood development times, most often. And now they're living in a life where they have an intention. I want to be an empowered, confident man in my sexuality. Great, that's a powerful intention. But I can't, my voice chokes up when I try to speak, or I can't make eye contact, or my whole body is shaking. And so this is an indication, well, there's another part of you that has the power and is saying, no, you are not confident. You're a wimp. You are, nobody's going to want you. I mean, we have all these negative internalized messages that literally hold the power over our intention until we empower the intention. So I basically help people get to their clarity of their intention and then learn how to empower it.
It sounds amazing. Actually, because I'm a spiritual business coach, there's a real connection between the things that people hide, the parts of themselves, that they would find. In my world, it's often described as woo-woo, which is this completely belittling term, which is thrown at anything that is alternative, because we have this idea that science knows best, corporate knows best, all of that kind of thing. And so the pieces that they most align with are the pieces that they often are embarrassed about. And once they bring it out and start talking about it, that's when they go off the charts in their success. So it's very linked, the idea of hiding.
Yeah, in fact, I have I have a lot of research and a lot of writing that I've done around these topics, because I think, for instance, I have a program for therapists I teach called Sexual Integration Therapy and Theory and Practice, SITP for short. And it's an alternative to the sex porn addiction treatment model. That is a very, what I would call a sex negative approach to helping someone. And if someone is getting value from that approach, then that's great. They should do with whatever is working. But many of my clients have been in sex porn addiction treatment, say, for 10 years or more, and still are struggling, still do not feel, certainly don't feel empowered. They are mostly feeling like they suck. They're a failure. They are not a normal human being. And so I look at so if someone is doing compulsive viewing of porn, or going to sex workers compulsively, or whatever the case might be, I look at that as the symptom, not the problem. Sex porn addiction treats that as the problem. This is bad. You got to stop doing this. And it doesn't really address, well, what is the nature of your sexuality? You know, if you were free to be who you are, and what kind of porn are you looking at? Is that the kind of interest you would have sexually? Well, yeah, maybe. So maybe they're discovering, oh, I am kind of kinky. You know, I am kind of have a little perversity in me that, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you, the problem is the cover up. This is what, there's an epidemic of people leading secret sex lives. And this is not addressed. It's not spoken of. It's merely framed in this sex porn addiction. They're a hypersexual, you know, they're a sex addict. And so they have an addiction. In other words, they're pathologized in what is maybe their authentic truth, but maybe they're just operating out of integrity. You know, they're lying, they're cheating, they're hiding, they're being irresponsible. They are out of integrity with their agreements, and they are putting at risk their life in many ways, or those they are responsible for, by being out of control in their sexual behaviors. So I help people learn how to integrate whatever their sexual truth is with the rest of their life, so they are in integrity with their values, agreements, responsibilities, and relationships. So this is this idea of the secrecy is very prevalent. People are so afraid to reveal or share the actual truth of their sexuality, even with their partners, and even ultimately with themselves. They can't own who they are, and so then it goes into shadow. They put it down, and are on the surface, they're wearing this white hat. I'm a nice guy. I'm a you know, all the good things, and their little secret sex life is running around. It's what I call the sex creature. It's a totally distinct persona from the everyday social persona, and it has a mind of its own. It has a persona of its own. And if the adult part of you isn't like, okay, down boy, you know, keeping it on a leash, it has no concern for you, really. It'll do anything immoral or perverse or out of integrity, just because it's a primal creature. You know, it doesn't consider these things. And so this is a way for as the adult stage to understand, oh, I'm responsible for my sexual behavior. You know, I have to take responsibility and operate it with, you know, in a responsible way. Or I'm going, you know, I mean, you don't have to, you can do what you want, but if you don't want to have chaos and disruption and continued cycles of shame and guilt going on in your life, it's time to step up and own who you are, and then be able to negotiate that in your relationships. This is one of the biggest teachings I think I offer, is when you're dating. First date, say, oh, yeah, I love these kinds of movies and this kind of art, and all, this is my spiritual faith, and I like to be dominant in the bedroom. How about you? You know, I mean, if that's my truth, I don't want to go months down the road and then suddenly, oh, by the way, you know, and then have them, oh my God, freak out. And well, that was a waste of a few months there, which could have been avoided by simply, and this is what I call claiming your sexual birthright. You know, as a human being, each human being has a sexual birthright. They are born as some kind of sexual being that's unique to them. And this is a birthright that is not recognized enough at this stage in the cultures all around the world, that, oh, yeah, you have a right to your sexuality, and you have a right to negotiate for that sexuality in your relationships. Now, you might negotiate in ways that, you know, maybe compromise or give up something in return for, oh, but I really love this woman and I want to be with her. And you find a way that you can, again, integrate that now into the relationship. And first is integration in the self, and then you integrate into the relationship. But that requires honest, transparent discussion and talk about what's really true and what you want. You know, you have a right for what you want. Yeah, if you don't want to be tied up and spanked and stuff, that's my sexual orientation. And if you do, that's great. But if not, it's just like any other boundary that one would have that say, oh, gee, this is great, you're a nice person, but it's really not gonna, we're not compatible, basically. It's like if I was a homosexual going out and talking to women about potential dating and, you know, not really mentioning so much, oh, I'm a homosexual. It's, you know, the same, whatever your truth is, you have a right to it. and it should be negotiated in the relationship. Now, of course, one of the big problems is erotic mismatches. And then people are now 2 decades down because they never had the conversation and coming to me, well, I finally realized what my truth is, what I desire, and well, there's no way my partner would ever agree to that. And so it's very much more complicated 20 years later rather than on the first date to have gone down this path. So, but there are ways to work through that, even if you are in an erotic mismatch, that I can help people find a way to hold together, or the ultimate truth might be, no, we're not going to hold together. And that's the way, that's just the truth, you know, so you have to embrace what's true.
Yeah, I want to pick up a few things of that piece of conversation. So number one, because we're talking about what it's like to be in the dating zone. I mean, actually, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as dating, not in that way. It was just, I grew up in Canada, I'm English, and we would just, you'd hang out with somebody, you'd get to like them, and then you were going out. But there was none of this idea of experimental dating, like, oh, we're on a date. And I remember when one guy asked me out on a date, and I remember I was like, oh my God, like, this is so weird and so embarrassing. And we went out to a hideous movie date, and it never worked because there had been a kind of natural evolution of a flow that was going on. So roll on, now we're in the world of everybody is dating online. And there are little tips that women put out, you know, for other women, like, you got to play this game, you got to hold back, you know, you can't sleep with them in the first month, et cetera, et cetera. So there's one whole piece of information going on like that. There's others which, you know, I was talking to Tantra Nova couple who I've also interviewed for this, and they were talking about, they met online. But for me, that was very unfamiliar, the online scene. Now I'm on the online scene, and there's a lot of it that I think there's a lot of lying up front. There's a lot of people putting on photographs like 30 years, you know, younger. So tell us about the first stage of, you know, of becoming sexually, owning your birthright sexually, but you're on a dating site.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me preface that with what I call the 5 keys of integrating your sexuality into your everyday life, because you need these intact before you begin dating. And these are, the 5 keys are, number 1, sexual authenticity. This is what I just talked about. You have a sexual birthright, that it's right for you to express that, to own that, to negotiate that. And also, because many people aren't really that clear about what their sexuality is, you have a right to explore and experiment if you're still trying to discover and get clear about the truth. So, so that's education, that's going to workshops, that's maybe having some experimental dating with someone who's mutually interested to explore some aspect of your sexuality, or go to a professional who can support you in taking the steps of that journey. And the second step, after you know what your truth is, then learn to be what I call sexual honesty. Now that I know my truth, my intention is to be honest. You know, I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'm not going to sneak them. I mean, that's what many client people come to me and say, man, I'm just tired of hiding and being, you know, in the dark. And I just want to be who I am. And this is where you learn then how to be honest. Now, you have a right to privacy. It's nobody's business unless you choose to share with someone. And certainly, you know, you want to step up and up your game to share with your partner at least, you know, and hopefully, you know, I mean, that you should want to have that kind of trust and intimacy with each other to reveal these very vulnerable, you know, scary parts of the self sometimes that it's really hard to own those. So the third one is sexual empowerment and embodiment. So this is very important, especially in dating. I recommend that everybody learn embodiment practice, learn mindful practice, learn how to be in your breath, learn how to be present, because this is how you can share your gift. You know, if you're not being present, if you're not embodied, you're not there, you know, and this is why the practice. So before I go on a date or have a date over, I do some embodiment practice. I might do some movement practice just to you know, because there's anxiety and all the other things that are going on and stuff, you know, so like learn, get for your partner's benefit and your own, learn to get present. And then there's techniques that I teach a practice I call my yoga and our yoga. And so the my yoga is a personal movement practice that puts you in touch with where there's tension in your body and you move into those tensions. So there's no asanas, particular asanas. It's your personal, just listening to your body and knowing where to move and stretch to release tension, basically. And so you can do this practice with another person, your partner, to where your bodies are in contact with each other. You're basically doing your own movement, but it's just like you run into the furniture while you're moving. You know, their body just becomes, you know, this surface that you move against, and you stay in your own practice. But by doing the two bodies together, you're really generating a lot of connection and trust and intimacy, because the bodies are talking. They know what's going on. And like, this is like, oh, nice, you know. And especially if you're about to engage in sex with a partner, this is a very good practice, not in a non-erotic way, just to ease any tensions. Oh, you didn't take the garbage out yesterday. You said you would. And I'm like, you know, you've got these surface tensions that are pretty lightweight. They aren't deep concerns, but they can easily be smoothed out with just putting the bodies in contact, getting present, being connected. The fourth is the sexual shadow. And this is, if you've been hiding your sexuality for 3 decades or 2 decades or whatever, some long period of time, that becomes a comfort zone. That's embedded habits. You have a lot of places. So you want to be aware of all the ways that your sneaky little sex creature has a way of sniffing around and kind of getting off the track. If it's, oh, they left the gate open and, you know, it goes out. So you want to really come in close contact and awareness of your own sexual shadows and the way, you know, you kind of sneak to get what you want and things, and aren't being transparent and honest. So, and the fourth one is, the fifth is paradox. And the paradox is coming to terms with what I said before, which has been disconnected or split off. Our sexuality has been split off from us. So, and we live in a monotheistic culture generally, in the West anyway, where things are black or white, right or wrong, good or evil. And so our bodies and our sexuality and our desires have all got cast off and put into the evil side, the bad side, the inappropriate, the taboo. That all becomes there. So now someone who realizes, like, wow, I'm rather kind of a filthy slut, really, and I really like getting a little body, and I like sex, and I like that, and but oh geez, I'm a Christian and I'm a feminist, and I went to this school and my friends are this way, and like, geez, how could I ever, you know, and God even, you know, is going to punish me if I accept that. So it's a conflict. Like, how do I can't, one cancels the other, in other words, in that psychological model. And the truth is, it's an and. I am a good parent, a responsible father, a good citizen in the world. I am in service in the world, and I'm generous. And yeah, I'm very kinky, and I like to do the things that are very taboo and dark edged. And so you know, the realization is, oh, it's both. I'm both. One doesn't cancel the other out. And again, I can learn how to integrate that into my everyday life in a way that's in integrity with my values, agreements, responsibilities, and relationships. So once you've got those, then, as I said, then if you're going to step into the dating pool, you know, write a totally honest profile. Say right up front, yeah, my sexuality, you know, my background is this, and school and art and literature and love and that, and my sexuality looks something like this. So I'm looking for a partner who might be compatible with that. So if there's no sense in going on dates and then trying to find out in a few weeks, what about the sex part, you know? And this is why learn about yourself, own who you are, be proud of who you are, celebrate it, you know. Come to this, you know, we have an internal dynamic of yes and no. And this is where you should be in an empowered, yes, this is who I am, fantastic. And because realize it's a gift to the right person. You know, you might get shamed by some person who's kind of got their own issues about people, judgments about other people's sexuality, but that's the nature of the world. But yourself, and this is where you learn to, you know, put boundaries around being shamed, you know, shamed by others, or you have a right to privacy, as I said, and protect yourself. But with your intimate other, you just want to be. There's nothing greater feeling than being liberated to be just free to say who you are, and if they don't like it, well, you're fine with it. That's fine. You don't have to like it. It's not a we're not. Everyone has to be the same. We are all unique individuals, and we should celebrate that kind of diversity.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. I mean, I feel that shame is a taught thing, and it's taught mostly by religions. In fact, Catholicism is the #1 shaming religion. I would say Islam is as well. Yeah. Orthodox Jews also, because they all have within them parts of which where sex is dirty, and I mean like dirty as in women are dirty, women are unclean. There's the taboos. I myself am a Wiccan, and there's even a piece in the Wiccan. There's something called the Charge of the Goddess, and so most of Wicca isn't written, right? And the 3 main religions in the world hold themselves up by saying, but we have the books, right? So they must be true. And no mention of the fact of how many translations, like Christ never wrote that, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, in the path of spirituality that I have, in this Charge of the Goddess, and ye shall be free from slavery. And as a sign ye be truly free, ye shall be naked in your rights, and ye shall dance, sing, make music, and love, all in my name. And all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. And when you're taught that, when you have that spoken to you and empowered into you, then for me, nakedness is a pleasure. Nakedness is a sacred part of my sexuality. I'm not ashamed of being naked. And I've been in rooms with a lot of different ages, a lot of different shapes, a lot of different people who are doing, meditation and that kind of practice, all naked. And there's something so incredibly moving and touching about seeing that level of connection. And I can say that from personal experience. But there is no such thing as sin or shame in the spiritual path I follow. And I wasn't brought up a Wiccan. My parents obviously are not that. But my mum's an atheist. And so she made a big stand against having me indoctrinated with a lot of sort of religious zeal. I myself am super spiritual, but I just don't have the word shame in my handbook. And I do believe it's taught. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's taught, but it's also instilled through authoritarian, terrifying acts, experiences. Yeah. It isn't just like, here's the doctrine and you're going to get this drilled into your head about how terrible sex is and your body and thinking about women, or if you're a man anyway, or maybe a lesbian, as the case might be. But this is what happens, though, or usually an event like, you're 5 years old in the bath with your cousin and you're playing with his cock and your mom walks in and goes, well, freaks out and shames you and get out of, just now you have, that's how it got taught, That little boy, if it was a boy, as I'm speaking of, learned, don't let anybody see me doing what I like to do. And is terrified now, carries that with them into the future. I work with clients, there's 50, 60 years old, and they're still, that experience, an experience like that they have is still, that's where I talk about empowerment. That part has the power now. It's a part the mother has got embedded in the psyche. And every time one starts to move towards pleasure, this part of the shaming is activated and you're terrified the door is going to open and there's, caught, busted again. So that your body is like a PTSD kind of response where you are triggered or poised to be triggered. You're afraid of the trigger, so while you're trying to have the pleasure of sex, this is, you're fighting this. So that's embodying at the same time. So you get clumsy and awkward and can't speak and you feel, or maybe you fought through it and had the sex and the orgasm, then right after there's this drop where you feel back to this horrible, you don't even know, you mostly, because it's unconscious, you just feel, got to feel so depressed today, or empty or vacuous, you know, and this is this unresolved part, so that still needs work. This is why it's the power of going on the journey of sexual authenticity, is you will get to address and face every part of you that is still in judgment or has been shamed, or also people have a terrible sexual trauma where they've been violated in some way, and so now this is really complicated their pleasure at this state until it's resolved. So this is a great opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to go on this both an empowering and a healing journey, because you're empowering your desire and you're healing all the things that resist and have stood in the way of the desire. So it's like an enlightenment path. You know, if you start on a path of sexual authenticity, you're really going to deepen yourself. And this is the thing of where when so many people are unresolved sexually, that they never ever even get to the expansive pleasure of their sexuality and the intimacy with a partner, the ecstasy, the, you know, off the charts, mind shattering, orgasmic intensity that you can share with another human being. That requires a certain adeptness, you know, to get to and practice. This is why it is, you know, yeah, you should be practicing and learning, and because there are the territory, I call it the erotic wilderness area. You know, this is vast territory that's mostly unexplored, and people are kind of peering into it, but that's where the boogeyman, they've been told, oh, you go out there, you're going to go to hell, you'll be annihilated, you know, no one will want you, and so people are stuck. That's why I talk about the paradox. They're like, their yearning is like, and that's why they sneak and hide, because they can't stop the yearning. The yearning is an instinctive power that is just on, and it's going to do what it wants, or you're going to channel it into overeating or drinking, or just disconnected from your body entirely. And this is the life force, you know, so get connected to your sexuality and bring yourself to life, you know.
Another little comment, you'll find this funny. So polyamory, which I love to call polyagony, which is super popular over in the States, especially yes. on the West Coast, right? Mm. And pretty much everybody I know who's involved with it, all the men have gone on a journey of polyagony. All the women have found it hell. And in the end, all the men get married. And it's almost like, I mean, I sort of jokingly watch polyamory, because it's like, I get it. It's also real. Like, you know, it's this deep, I've seen some of these deep conversations about we all get our needs met. But usually from an observer's position, there's usually a couple really. And then the third is like the dalliance, or whatever you want to call them. There really is a couple, but there really is this sort of strong urge to do something else. And in the end, it's the women who aren't really down with it. They try everything to sort of be open about it. They're not really that down with it. And in the end, the guys fall in love with the women who put up more of hey, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And that's the ones they marry. And in the rest of my life, people don't get married as much. So it's almost like a rite of passage or something, that people go on this journey of polyagony. But mostly I would say it's polyagony, not the fantasy that we are led to believe is joy, expression, and all the rest of it. So do tell, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I love the term polyagony. I totally relate to that, and I think it's a brave new world kind of effort. You know, that people are really going to try hard to open up to this expansive idea of love and intimacy and sex and relationship. And it's kind of that's the problem. It's a utopian ideal, and you can never achieve the ideal. The ideal isn't tangible. It's the benchmark maybe that you can aspire to. I mean, I think people have a right to choose any path that they want to explore or feel is right for them. But yeah, I don't think we're prepared to be polyamorous. You know, I was raised in the 50s and the 60s, so I mean, it's way, as much as, yeah, I mean, I mean, being a swinger was more kind of a way to go rather than polyamory. And there are in polyamory the idea of the primary couple and or something that they kind of gloss over the sentiment maybe, but yeah, I think it's very difficult. I mean, you know, one-on-one relationship is as complex as it can be, you know, and also can be as consuming and as full enriching. But then that's why, you know, certainly I know for myself, I've dabbled in that as well and made some, I mean, because the sex side of it was certainly, oh yeah, that sounds great. I can't, you know, I would love to have sex with multiple people. Well, geez, that would be fantastic. But, and also, I mean, but also they are trying also to have relationship, not just sex, but are also an emotional or connected relationship. But I mean, I think part of this evolves out of our culture. We are so lonely. We have no tribe, you know, we are isolate little units, you know, and maybe couples or something that, to a great extent, there are people who have extensive families and connections and all that, but a lot of people don't, you know, and I think that this is, they're yearning for a tribe, to be in a tribe of people who are all kind of, you know, after the same thing. And it is a noble effort, but what, again, this requires very mature adult behavior. And most of us have not been initiated deep enough into adulthood to be able to handle the heavy stuff, I think, you know. So because once you step, what you said, this agony is that's the shadow, you know. People didn't, yes, I'm not jealous, I can do this, and I'm, you know, but the truth is, no, fucking damn, you know, underneath, you know, they're going into this resentment and fear and anger and all the things, you know, that are making it the agony part. So, but I celebrate in a way, you know, people's adventurousness to, okay, we're gonna, you know, I mean, that's how things change in the broader sense. Maybe that is a doable thing, but I don't think it's done without much preparation and learning and self-examination and healing of the self, then start that maybe, but do take the front end steps first before you jump into that.
And so on your dating profile, if you're going on a polyamorous rampage, say it. You know, say it.
Exactly. I'm like, looking for a poly family or something, you know.
Yeah.
But again, like, because people don't talk about these things in the beginning, then you get decades into the relationship and people start bringing up, oh, I was reading about polyamory, and, you know, people can kind of get led down this path and they're not really ready for that, but they went along because they've been a pleaser and someone who just doesn't say no, doesn't hold boundaries, and then, you know, they get swept into that agony. Generally, maybe people find ecstasy. I mean, I know it's a very big topical conversation, you know, everything is about polyamory, you know, and, but, you know, I like being just at this point, certainly, I want to put my focus on my partner and one partner, and that's plenty, and I want their focus on me, you know. This is the time. That's how I want to cultivate my intimacy and my depth and my connection. Is, you know, with that focus, one-on-one.
And so let's ask a sort of gender biased question. As a woman who's going on dates right now, I am a little bit curious as to whether you think the minute that I mention sexuality in a profile, that would also mean that I would attract a whole bunch of guys who just want sex. What do you think?
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, a fly on shit kind of,
I know,
attraction. Well, I mean, men, I mean, it's terrible. This would be a great research. I'd be interested in researching this, like, what the fuck is going on with people on the dating sites where they are so out of integrity, such scumbags, you know, men and women both. I mean, but you're certainly more men on the sexual side. Yeah. Oh, she said sex. you must want to fuck, and I'm gonna, let's go, baby. You know, I mean, it's that men. I mean, I have a great empathy for men. I've done men's work for 20 years. I've led rite of passage weekends, both for adult men as well as for teenage boys, and I have a great empathy for the beauty of men and
me too.
boys.
Oh, the brothers,
and,
I know.
And they are so poorly educated and kind of and don't have this. They're the most confusing time ever for men is right now, I think, in the whole history of the world, and it's a tough. And yes, that most men are very immature because we don't have this idea of initiation. You know, your traditional cultures at 14, 12, whatever, the boys were initiated in a cohort, and those became their brothers for the rest of their life, and they had each other's backs. And were learned how to be in integrity, how to protect the tribe, you know, how to be a warrior, hold boundary. I mean, you know, you were entering this culture of the masculine, which was a very noble and powerful and organic element, I think, of masculinity. I think this is to be preserved at this time when masculinity is being torn apart, I think, in many ways, and out of the fear, and it's kind of a
masculine, isn't it's the old patriarchal structures which were no good for men or women, right, are going down, and I'm dancing on the heads,
and that's the shadow. So the masculine shadow has been predominant in the world, again, because we've lost initiation. Maybe it's instinctive, maybe it comes from the primal heritage and as mammals, and this is kind of still being worked out as we evolve as conscious beings rather than unconscious beings or instinctive beings. Anyway, you know, we're now entering in this phase of humanity where we're quite relatively conscious, you know, of learning about what we are and how we operate. But it is by men's own doing that this attack or this assault on masculinity is happening, because of the centuries or millenniums of marauding brutality and disregard by many elements of the masculine, especially the power.
Of course.
Some instinctive power thing. But, you know, I've been around men. I, you know, grew up in the 50s, so I came, the men who were in World War II, which were primarily men, not women. There were women who served, of course, but I was exposed to these men, you know, as fathers, as providers, as neighbors, as this very wonderful men, you know.
Yeah.
So I was raised in that culture of men, and it wasn't this, I didn't see that dark side of the masculine really in just my day-to-day life as a boy growing up. And so, but I saw the gentlemanly masculine and all that. And so I still believe that's a natural part of the masculine. And it is a part that men aspire to. Most men I know aspire to to be a good man, you know. And but this brings kind of back to the subject of dating and relationship, though. I have an article I wrote called "What to Do with Your Nice Guy When She Begs for Your Bad Boy," and this is a phenomenon now after 20 years or more of feminism and such. You know, so many men have been tried so hard to be good men that they've kind of lost their edge. They've given up their edge, and so they are. They have no power. They have no. They don't hold boundaries. You know, they can't stand up and speak up and say no. You know, they're just they kind of gotten browbeat down into this. Oh, I want to be nice. I know men have been so terrible all this time. I want to be speaking. Yeah, so you're, of course, anything you want, and which can be fine if that works for two people. But the problem is I get women clients coming to me like, I just wish you would like push me against the wall sometimes and just take me or something. And like they have a man who would never dare to transgress because, my mother told me that, men treat women with respect and care, which is of course true. This is, again, comes back to the paradox, you know, well, both of those things are true. That doesn't mean, because if a woman says that or desires that, that doesn't mean, no, she wants to be mistreated or abused or violated or transgressed, crossing a boundary. It just means with her intimate partner, sometimes, you know, there's a part of her that instinctively wants a man to stand up and say what's what, and, you know, and push back and also take, you know, what, because she wants to be taken. I mean, it is this dance of these energies, you know, that are of our ancient past, and we're learning how to, again, integrate them to allow both of them to flourish.
Yeah, there's a lot of fantastic divine masculine work going on, certainly in Britain. And a lot of the power couples, they're not like power couples as in celebrity, but they're these incredible couples I know. The men are simply incredible. And they're actually going off and doing a lot of the green men work or masculine rights, and the women are just totally down for that. It's like, you go do your thing, and women also do their thing. I think actually that the new earth era is going to be super powerful, because we're going to get this mix of really like the initiated male, fully empowered but not violent. I would say that's an edge. Not violent, as not war making, just, you know, fully expressed. And then also divine feminine. And so some of the power models that are shifting definitely in business, for instance, instead of it being like corporate America, which is the ultimate masculine, like every day is a push and you gotta, you know, you just gotta show up. And in fact, when women give birth, you have in America, in corporate America, 2 weeks to deliver a baby, produce it, and then go back on the sales cycle, which is insane for everybody, for the family, for, you know, for the father, for everybody. But I'm seeing a lot of this. I'm very hopeful, actually. I'm not a cynic. I think the violence needs to go. Putting down of young men, like young Black guys right now, that total disregard for them. So I strangely enough, as a blonde white woman, mentor into those circles as well. And I think that's a big group that's been disregarded, abused, you know, given the worst of sort of white male supremacy and all the rest of it. There's so many little pockets of it. Corporate America is another one where I think that it's masculine in a way that's destructive. It's great having models, but when you bring in divine feminine power, it's all about invitation, collaboration, communication, and then integrating things. And I'm seeing a lot of like power models, super successful people starting to use those models, and men also, you know, but it's very different than the 1% club where, you know, 1% will make it, everybody else fails, everybody else is a slave to the system. That's old model, needs to go, you know.
And it is, I think.
And it is.
It's crumbling. It can't hold itself together. And I think there's a big vacuum, a big wisdom vacuum being created by that. And it's kind of a race. And there's a lot of where I would judge more authoritarian, but different clothing energies trying to fill that vacuum, you know, that I think are to be cautioned for. It's a much more, because it doesn't have the part, it's creating more other, or maintaining the distinction of us and them, you know, and other. And this is, that's too small of a ideological picture, you know. To me, if your ideology doesn't include all of humanity, it's too small, exactly. You know, and this is, but the problem is no wisdom, I think, is, I mean, there is at least cracking the surface. I think it's all over the place, but it hasn't really found a voice or a channel strong enough to kind of compete with the narratives of mostly left and right one ideology or another, left or right, which I think is the problem. You know, you have it's polarized by its nature. If there's only two sides, it's going to be a mess for whichever way things go, which much more a diverse humanity than being, you know, either get thrown out there, well, are you left or right? You know, are you with us or against us? And the lack of any nuance or more understanding, it's way more complex than that. You know, if I'm not for the right, that doesn't mean I'm for the left. You know, and if I'm for the left, that doesn't mean I'm against the right. I mean, these are much more complex things, and people get into lockstep of, I'm just voting this way, straight up and down, and nothing else matters. It's just we have to defeat that other side and stop them. It's just creating an enemy that you're so raging about that you know, you've lost from my view. You're losing your humanity when you get on these ideological poles of left or right, and it's not a healthy, it's not a wise approach, I think, to solving any of our problems as humans or on the earth.
And unfortunately, we're right around your election. So, unfortunately,
we're at the peak power of this ideological
of your ideology.
Right,
and so, lest we not get stuck in that one, you know, because I feel it with my friends over there, and they're just going bananas. Like many of them are saying, we want to leave America. You know, a sort of outrageous statement, but it's like they just have had enough, right? They want something else. And but anyway, I want to go back to that little question I asked you. So if I'm a woman who is dating and I want to mention that I like pleasure, so in other words, I'm not Betty Crocker. I'm not looking for kink either, but I'm trying to say, hey, you know, I want a bit of that, but you can't just say, how would you frame it so that we don't get the hound dogs all in a pack?
Well, don't go there if you're not empowered to take what's to come, you know, and which, you know, I think if you're in an empowered state, you know, this shit's going to come in and just kind of fish it out. And by being honest, you know, be transparent and honest, and also hold your boundaries. Say, look, I've been opening and interested in exploring my sexuality. I've been dabbling with neo-tantra or sacred sexuality or kink, and I'm just beginning. And so I would like to find someone who is at that stage and would like to explore. Now I'm looking for a man who's in integrity. You'd have to have done some personal work. I'd like to hear your back, you know, just really qualify what you are looking for. And that in itself will probably, if you're going to that depth, that's probably going to stall a lot of, you know, guys looking for a quick, you know, romp or something, because it's like they'll be confused.
They have to read and write back. Yeah. So I mean,
so I mean, you know, what you're looking for then is, because look, there are, in the case of a woman in that position, there are men who would be wonderful candidates for that kind of exploration or relationship, even if it led to that. But I would say if your sexuality is important to you, and it should be, then we'll again do all that those 5 steps I said first. You know, before you start dating, again, maybe do some work on yourself first. Get clear for yourself, you know, about what do I really want, you know, and what kind of partner do I really want, and what kind of sex do I really want, and work to get to where your yes is strong. Yes, that is who I am. That's the truth, and I can't wait. You know, where you feel excited and alive in it. You know, and so that can take some work to get healed over all the ways that maybe you haven't felt empowered, or you have been afraid or terrorized by a man in the past, or you're still carrying that PTSD again type response. But if you're ready to go, if you kind of, you know, you don't have to be perfect in any of these things, you know, but you know, you'll know when you're ready to go, and And you have to, it's like an initiation. It's scary as hell. It's like, oh my God, I can't. Crossing that threshold is like the biggest, takes the most incredible amount of strength to just go in, you know, take that step, you know. But once you do it, then it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, where the little curtain got pulled and it was like, oh, just this little, you know, tiny little man who wasn't really scary at all. You know, you'll find that, yeah, that those things you fear so much are usually, oh, man, what was I so freaked out about? So you have to take some stretches. You have to lean into doing this for yourself. And then, you know, you're going to get really good at holding your boundaries because of what you might come in then and weeding out, just giving no's, no, practice your no too, you know, get strong and no, just as strong as you want your yes, you know, you want your no just as strong, you know, so that you have no fear with saying no, you know, holding the boundaries, stop, you know. And this is, I think the great majority of men are going to stop. If a woman says stop, you know, clear, direct, you know, they get it, you know. There's others who, are going to be obnoxious or rude or even violating. And those, I believe, are, so many people are so afraid of the dating world because there's a lot of like urban legends of, oh my God, the horrible thing that happened when someone let someone in their life off the internet and all this. So yeah, also then understand how to vet someone, you know. Don't know when, get your instincts right up there where you're like, oh, phony, not transparent, doesn't want to, oh, they're hiding something, obviously they're probably most likely married or, you know, so like just get your act together strongly to how you vet someone, you know, and expect right away, like, so listen, go right away to, like, let's have a phone call. You know, if you find somebody interesting, go right to a phone or even a video call so you actually see, oh, this is the person who they say they are, and you get to get a gut instinct of the feel for them, you know. Even like, oh, if you really have a little suspicion, listen, I feel a little suspicion. Would you be willing to just hold your driver's license up to the screen so I can see that you match who you say you are and such, or whatever you need to do. You know, you're, as an adult, you can handle all of these things, but just take the adult stance, you know, and know your right to be who you are and ask whatever questions you have. And if you get any flag comes up, then just move on. You know,
just move on.
If they can't resolve the flag, or they're not eager and anxious to oh, sorry, I can show you here, then know that something isn't quite right usually.
I can't imagine ever doing that. I would be like, unless it was some kind of sexy little movement, like, can you show me your ID? But I don't think so. No. So, I mean, in terms of you, are you a romantic optimist, do you think, after dealing with all the kink in the book? Are you a romantic optimist now?
Well, I'm a romantic, and I'm probably pretty, well, I don't know. What do you mean by a romantic optimist? What do you define that?
Do you believe in love? Do you believe?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm in love right now. You know, I mean, I have my lover is in Spain. I'm heartbroken over it, really. But I mean, my mission is to join us together and be together. And as I said, I'm monogamous, you know, at this point. I mean, I might be a little bit of a swinger. So if I'm, you know, if anybody else came, and it would just be in a sexual sense, not in a partnered sense, but mostly at this stage, I mean, I'm 70 years old, so you know, monogamy is fine for me. And I tell you, I've had my sexual journey the last 20 years has been off the charts. I've been so blessed to really have explored that erotic wilderness. In fact, I used to have a business card said that erotic wilderness guide was my profession, you know, and so yeah, my sexuality is still alive and still strong and deep, and as is my partner's, and so we And this is the thing, you know, for the people in the elder stage of life, like, man, just, geez, people seem to just have some sort of automatic switch they think has happened once they turn 60 or something, that, well, sex is over, especially for men if they can't get in a full erection or maintain it, they think that, well, I mean, also they're embarrassed and they feel a little shamed about it and such. But gentlemen, I have an expression I call sex is friction, eros is myth. You know, so 10 minutes of friction sex is what most people get maybe, and that can be a cathartic thing. But you don't need, if you cannot penetrate your woman with your cock, there's 1,000 other things that you can do to bring her to a level of enchanted ecstasy and intimacy and connection. And also, I say this idea of myth because I look at kink as an archetypal, symbolic, mythic, story-driven sexuality rather than friction sex oriented or sacred. It's different than sacred sex. It's a more of a descent instead of an ascent. It's you're going down into the more primal, primitive, instinctual levels back into the mammalian and reptilian heritage, even where, you know, the body, the gestures and the energies are very, you know, alpha, beta kind of pecking order kind of things. And so these are connected to archetypal personas of within the, what I call a personal erotic myth. Each person who's what I call a fetish sexual, which is someone who is a sexual orientation is kink oriented. They have a paired dyad in their unconscious, a complex in there that is already intact from birth, that has this power exchange oriented dyad of dominance and submission in some way. And that could be a pantheon of characters that's why it's archetypal, because there's so many different embodiments that archetypally can occur. And so this is when people are exploring kink, it's to access and get in touch with this. Probably since before puberty, even many people who are kink oriented have been fantasizing about being captured or, capturing someone and all level of things, even before they could ejaculate or masturbate. They could masturbate, but they couldn't ejaculate yet. But this is a part of my research. I have a research project called the Discover Your Personal Erotic Myth Survey, which has now over 5,000 participants in it, and I'm just about to publish the first paper from that research data on fetish sexuality as an authentic sexual orientation, because this is a very important step to take, just like it was for lesbians and gays to get identified as, they're a legitimate sexual orientation, because then you get legal rights and marriage rights, custody rights, all the things which right now people in kink are vulnerable to being condemned by the courts, even though there's nothing illegal, just on a moral grounds, and can get screwed in divorces and child custody, housing situations, employment situations. So anyway, but if people, the survey is a research survey, but it's also a tool for individuals to really drill down deeper into their sexual unconscious and kind of conjure up, if they're not already aware, many people are quite aware of their sexual archetypal nature and who the archetypes are and the symbols and the myths and the stories, the dialogues, the props, the attire, all the things that are compacted into that story within themselves of, geez, I just lost my train right there.
You're talking about the descent, and I like that analogy.
So it's a tool. The Personal Erotic Myth Survey is, I encourage people to go take it, because people have reported like, wow, I learned so much about myself, and I never realized all that was really going on there that I hadn't thought of or hadn't consciously thought of, because it's still below the surface, because mostly we turn our gaze away. People don't want to look deeply into their sexuality. But that's on my website, galenfous.com. People can find it there. And then you can opt in. It's anonymous, but once you have finished, you go to a place where now you can opt in, and it's not connected to what's your input anymore, but you can receive the compiled results of all 5,000 people who have taken it. And it's kind of like that Nancy Friday's secret garden story, what people reveal in there, because there's a lot of the survey is allowing you to make your own. So it's A, B, C, or D, or other. And you can say, so they can put in snippets of the dialogue from their fantasies that are very revealing. There's also parts in there that demonstrate the terrible cost of the shaming and sex negative culture they were raised in and how it's impacted their ability to be who they are. And so, but it's a very, I encourage people to go take that if they're kind of searching and want to learn more.
And you can put that on your page as well in your description when you fill it out. It can be very clear for people to go to that. I wanted to mention one of the most amazing articles as we wrap up, and then I'll give it over to you. But one of the most amazing articles I ever read was about octogenarian sex, and so sex over 80. And the best article I read was this woman who said, you know, my first husband, he was pretty good. I mean, we had a great relationship. The sex was, I would say, better than average. We had a lot of fun. And then he died. And then I was in my 40s at that point. Second husband comes along at end of the 40s. He was really amazing. You know, we sort of got to get to next level sex and, you know, multiple orgasms and all of that. But she said, but the best one was the one I met when he was 72. And he's the one who's, you know, after the other one died, and she was in her 80s, and they had sex every day. She had an orgasm every day, at least. And she said that the thing that was most amazing was that though the bodies were more wrinkly and all of that kind of thing, they were so familiar with each other. And they actually didn't talk about it because all their friends pretty much weren't having any form of sex whatsoever. And it was all very taboo because they were having such a great time. And I just love this woman. I just thought, what an amazing, you know, honesty. So ladies and gents, you know, it's not all gonna pack up. It's could get better and better and better. Like the best sex you ever have is 70 plus, you know. We don't even have 3 stages of humankind anymore. Those stages have been extended. And so now really, you know, you hit the 50s, that used to be considered old age. That is now like the beginning of the elder stage of 4 or 5 stages above that. So there's got to be like the hot sex stage for the 80s and 70s and maybe 90s, you know. Yeah.
Well, this is it's a big tragedy, a huge tragedy that so many people are disconnected from their, not only their sexuality, but their bodies generally by the time they're in their late 50s. You know, they just kind of don't believe they can be active and physical, and they certainly don't believe they can be sexual. Even too many people are. There's like little gems, like the story you told of that person, which just demonstrates, there's nothing changed once you hit 60 as far as your own internal libido and desire, and also, but it's something that should be cultivated. You know, this is why there should be big programs available for elders, people entering into their elders, about eldering. You know, what's this about, for one thing? And also elder sex, you know, should be a topic. So how can you rejuvenate, especially for people who most likely have lost that connection with each other, couples? I mean, you know, of how to rejuvenate that connection with each other. It's very, I mean, it's a perfect thing to do at this stage of life, you know, is to have that kind of deep intimacy with and honesty and openness and pleasure and exploration, experimentation. You know, I mean, that's the promise. You know, that's what's possible. But the people have to take the initiative somehow. You know, they have to be stirred into it, and so many people are so far away from feeling any kind of empowerment around their elder sexuality that they can't even, you know, they can't speak it. They just are totally shut down, just buried it so deep. So that's a big area that could be better, where people could be better served.
Lead the way.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I've already got so many things I'm going now. And it's like one more thing. Actually, I took out a website name. I called it
Oh,
wildelders.com.
great. I love it.
And I wanted to make it I had the vision of it becoming like a lifestyle
Yeah.
blog or website, that was a resource for, and also being an inspiration by interviewing or having people who I would call wild elders, people who
Yeah.
are still kicking it in some way and very creative, and just let those people be known models for like, wow, because most people probably don't even think they could do something fantastic.
That's
Now
such
that
a
I'm
great
60,
idea. Do it. So
help
let's
me.
do it.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
All right, let's do it. I mean, I'm down for that because I
Yeah.
am an elder and I am such a wild elder. There's no way I will be like that woman, the 80-year-old something.
Yeah.
She was like 86 or
Uh-huh.
something. I will definitely be
Well,
her.
I think it's a fabulous idea, and
Yeah.
let's think about how it could happen with among all the other
It's,
things.
I do a lot of
And
branding, and that is the most incredible name. It really, really is. It just hits
yeah,
the spot so perfect. And I could bring
yeah,
in some of my elders. One of the best, most amazing couples I know are a gay couple, and they're really into. They've been long term, or they must have been at least 30 years together. I believe. But Ken, if you're with me, you know who you are. He basically said he came from, when I first met him, he said, I came out of Kentucky white trash. He's completely educated and an articulate, wonderful man. And he said, and I started having transcendental experiences. I became a transcendental meditation teacher. And so how he dresses is he's got a beard, long hair, and when he's really up to it, he's got pearl earrings, and he sort of looks like a biker with pearls on. He's fabulous, and he's completely, like a wise elder. And his partner, Keisha, wears these outrageous outfits for Pride. It's always like, like Frida Kahlo or something. He just he goes to town on that, and then by day one's a carpenter, and then Ken works in mental health, major institutions. Actually, he's just like, he's a gem of a human being, and they're two of the best, one of the longest couples, one of the most wonderful relationships that I have had the pleasure to witness. Really, these lovely people growing older together, but they're wild elders, so yeah.
All right. Well, let's see if something happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, is there anything else you want to say? It's been a marvelous connection with you today. I'm sure so many listeners have got something out of this. Go wild, people.
Yes. I'm cheering all of you on to just be who you are. Bless yourself. Remember to honor yourself, love yourself, because there's so much divisive energies in the world. It can be, you can lose yourself and either some fervor you're on some mission, and that's good, but we also get attacked a lot for sometimes if we take a stance, and this is, I find it's important now to really tune into yourself and hold your shield up, protect yourself, and also love yourself, and find the ecstasy in life. It's right there before you.
Yeah, beautiful. So I will love you and leave you, audience, and check out Galen Fous and his survey as well, which is really a wonderful opportunity for you all. Love you and leave you, and enjoy dating.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure, and we'll talk again.
Yeah.
Bye.
Namaste, everybody. Goodbye. Good night. Okay.
Yeah.